Good evening. This is John Bailey, and this is People to Be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight, you've got Superintendent of Schools in White Plains, New York, USA, Dr. Joseph Ricca, and the Assistant Superintendent for Business, Ann Vaccaro Tesh. How do you do? Good to see you all again. And and this is the week, Dr. Ricca, where most White Plains students in all grades, all 7,000, will be back in school after a 5-week phase-in. And you're here to tell us how the return of the Taggers to full-time in school is going. First, could you background us on the various phases of remote learning, the hybrid learning, organized in less than 5 days, and attendance during this year, leading to return full-time attendance? An amazing achievement, in my opinion.
Well, thanks, John. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with you again. I do want to extend certainly on behalf of mine and Ann's and our team here in the White Plains City School District, but most importantly on behalf of the Board of Education, an enormous thank you to our community of White Plains. This has been a long road. We didn't get to where we are today, but with a ton of amazing support from everybody all throughout the community. So yeah, it is an exciting time right now in the White Plains City School District. Despite the fact that we're still dealing, of course, with COVID-19, we're thrilled that we were able to welcome back all of our children, all of our Tigers to 5-day in-person instruction. It's been a long road. And if I sort of take you back, to where we were last year in March of 2020, it seems that folks have really literally moved mountains to be able to identify the best way forward, the safest, most supported, and smartest way forward, and then get us to eventually where we ended up now in April, where we're able to welcome back all of our children. So we started out, John, if you'll remember, and many in our community will remember, last summer, we were actually able to welcome in person students who qualify for extended school year programming. So believe it or not, the facilities in the White Plains City School District never really closed. We were always operating, but at a very, very reduced capacity based on the requirements associated with the pandemic. As we moved into the fall with an enormous amount of work by the district reopening committee and building level reopening committee planners, we were able to open up for in-person hybrid instruction, which depended upon your grade level. You either had 2 days in person or 1 day in person, and then it rotated. Now, what folks at home might not know is that even through the fall and into the winter, where we were able to bring more children back in and still fall within the requirements of density, we did that. So we were always adding opportunities for children to be in person in school. And we think that that's something that White Plains should be very proud of. I have to tell you, our faculty and staff members, our administrators, our custodians, our maintenance folks, everybody in the entire organization pulled in the same direction to get us to where we are. And without them, we would never have been able to do it. So finally then in March, we began phasing in all of our children for full-time 5 days a week in-person instruction. Now, John, not every child is able to come back in person, and that's okay. We have the vast majority of children who are back in person with us daily. We still have a smaller percentage of children who are unable to come back in full-time, and we continue to support them remotely, and they're still in their classes. Again, another thing that we should be really proud of here in White Plains, we didn't create a bifurcated school district. We didn't create a remote set of teachers and an in-person set of teachers. Our children are in their classes, and they were in their classes since the beginning of the academic year. That allowed us to transition to in-person much more smoothly than if we had to create, if you will, new classes for kids to come back during the fourth marking period. So a lot's happened, and we really have come a long way. But you're right, this is something to be proud of and celebrate as we've now moved into this stage of reopening.
Right. So how do you grade parents, students, and staff on the return progress and process so far since March 22nd?
I'll tell you, I was always a notoriously difficult grader when I was teaching social studies, but I would have absolutely no problem with grading our community an A+. This has been a hard time, John. And, you know,
Yes.
with serving thousands and thousands of children and trying to meet the unique needs of thousands of households, our parents really demonstrated a great deal of love and desire to support each other, and a recognition that everybody had different needs. So we saw in our community folks coming together and supporting each other. We saw a great amount of patience, a great amount of flexibility, grace and understanding when things didn't go well. So easy for me, John, A+.
Have there been any issues, infected students, staff out of the ordinary since we went back to the full-time process?
No, not out of the ordinary, but I'm glad that you bring that up, and Ann will, you know, she'll attest to this for me. We still have COVID-19. We still need to be vigilant. For folks who are willing and able to get vaccinated, of course, consult with your healthcare provider, but that's an opportunity for you. You know, what allowed us to get to where we are today, John, was that partnership that we had with the County of Westchester to get vaccinations for all of our staff members who were willing and able to be vaccinated. We're up over 80% of employees in the White Plains City School District being having been vaccinated. That's a
Very fast too.
Yeah, very fast. So
thanks
no,
to our partnerships with the county and the Department of Health. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Well, the organization counts. Organization counts. How students have gone back to full in-school learning, and how many parents have kept their children home for continued remote learning? What is the percentage?
So at the elementary level, we are upwards of about 93% in person and climbing every day. So, you know, you can imagine if you were a mom or a dad, as you know, I'm a dad with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, you were looking for that day for full-time in person.
It's terribly difficult.
And they're taking advantage of it, which is great. At the middle school and the high school level, we're seeing somewhere around 75, 72% in person. And again, climbing. It's just kind of a different scenario for the upper grade children. And of course, for parents and guardians and whatever particular family needs. Now, attendance has been something that we've been keeping a very close eye on all throughout the academic year, and following up and following through with children who are not attending, who weren't attending in, you know, remote instruction, and certainly who are not attending in-person instruction. That's been really an important focal point here for us in the district, because we want to make sure that we're keeping a very close eye, arm's length, with all of our children and their families, and providing support for them in any way that they might need it to make sure that they have access to school.
Right. Have you gotten a lot of questions and confusion on the part of the parents, or do you feel your communication has been pretty effective in getting the word out?
Yeah, I think, you know, for communication, you can always, and the approach that we take is you can always look to do more and try to do better. We have been communicating with our families regularly, which I think is important, and I think it's helpful. We do get a lot of questions, though. You can imagine, you know, with thousands of households, it's easy, and there's a ton of information, so it's easy to miss something when you're just trying to, you know, get to work and take care of everything you need to take care of at home. So we try to accommodate folks as best as we can. And you know what, John? One of the most important, often repeated requests that you hear from the school district, and I'll take this opportunity to say it here as well, is if someone in the home is unwell, not feeling well, has COVID-related symptoms, the children should not come to school that day until you know for sure that your household is not being impacted by COVID-19. What we're seeing, John, is children coming to us with COVID-19, not getting it in school, but actually coming to us. So if you have an outstanding test, let's say you weren't feeling well, you went and got tested, you're waiting for your results to come back, and you have a kindergartner, that child should not come to school until you know that you're negative. Because what happens is, if you send the child to school and it turns out to be positive, now you've exposed the child's class, and now we have contact tracing, and we have quarantine, and we have all that disruption. So just really being mindful that we have to make sure that we're well before we come into the facilities goes a long way in supporting us.
I see. And how is the monitoring in school by the staff and also by the students themselves. And how's that going? You find they're pretty compliant with the masks and social distancing?
And you want to kind of give a glimpse into the world of operations and health?
Yeah.
Sure. Everyone, since day one, we've had part of the reopening committee. We had a operations reopening committee, and there you have the director of facilities and our nurse coordinator who have done an incredible job, as well as the other team members. And everyone is compliant. Right off the bat, we did videos on how to wear your mask, both for the adults and the children. We demonstrated on video of, what it is to go through a Binax, test, one of the rapid tests. We have, all the classrooms set up. Everyone has done a diligent job of trying to make sure of all the spacing, assigning seats on the bus and in the cafeteria. And the kids get it. The kids absolutely understand and get it. And they are so respectful and so compliant.
That is great to hear. That is really great to hear, and particularly at the high school level.
Absolutely.
The rebel without a cause stage, right? Now, how effective has the remote learning, based on what faculty and staff are finding at the various levels in their classes that have come, and that especially in the upper grades? What is the feedback that teachers are giving you?
Well, I think, like everything that we've done to sort of circumvent the effects of the pandemic, we knew that remote instruction, hybrid instruction was really an emergency stopgap to try and make sure that we were delivering instruction and providing school to our children during the pandemic. We know, and we knew from the get-go, that nothing replaces, face-to-face, one-to-one instruction. But I will say this, when speaking with the teachers, hybrid instruction is extraordinarily challenging. As an instructor, it's challenging, and as a student, it's challenging. Our kids really did their very best, and our teachers and support staff members did their very best to try and, meet that nexus of support for our students. So, did the curriculum progress slower this year than it has in years past? Yeah, probably did. Are there some benchmarks that perhaps teachers weren't able to spend time on like they would have in a traditional academic year? Sure. Is it a lost year for children? Emphatically no. And that's important for moms and dads to hear, because what we're hearing is this trope of, the lost children. No. These are children who have survived and thrived and overcome an extraordinarily adverse period of time. So the academic piece, I always say that's teacher's superpower, right? However you come to me, I'm going to take where you are and move you forward. If I have to backfill some information that perhaps you don't have a good handle on, we can do that. We have to provide additional supports, additional setting supports, additional opportunities and experiences like after-school support, enrichment, extension, weekend support, enrichment, and extension, summer school. We can do all those things. The most important thing is that our children are healthy and still engaged in school. So, John, the toughest thing in a remote environment is that level of engagement. And I have to tell you, having had the opportunity to sit in and view our instructors and support staff members with kids, they were doing a phenomenal and a masterful job in a very difficult scenario. So I think our children did well. I think, we're going to have work to do, but that's what we do in school.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't tell you. It is very hard when you look at screens all day to keep focused. I think the remote learning had to be, probably was as successful as it could be, considering the amount of work that was put into it.
And even, to your point, John, even for adults, you will notice right now, I am standing up. Why? Because I learned going through this process that I didn't do well sitting down for long periods of time in meetings. I needed to stand up. I need to be able to shift and move around. You will notice right in front of me right here, I have this little squishy ball that I can squish, and you don't even notice it while I'm engaged in, hours long meetings. I'm a grown adult. So if you're 7 or you're 6 or you're 8 or you're 14, we had to know and understand that there were going to need to be these types of supports for our kiddos. And our teachers did a great job of figuring that out for them. There's nothing wrong with fidgeting on the screen as long as you're doing, you're still connected to your.
As long as you're doing it standing up. Ernest Hemingway wrote standing up because of his war injury. And so there is a physical fitness tip from the superintendent of schools. A little bonus on this usually intellectual hard news program. Now, what were some of the learning strategies teachers implemented when students first came back and are still coming back this week?
Above all, just care, welcome, support the kids. The most important thing that we can do right now is provide the social and emotional support to our children as they are re-entering back into what's a much more typical day. It was like the first day of school, John. For some of our children, it was the first time that they were ever in their buildings. We have taken a very light touch, very supportive approach to welcoming the kids back. And that's how we intend to continue the remainder of the academic year.
Well, you know what? That is just terrific. They realized they liked school.
Yeah.
Better spending all day with your parents, right? But what is the situation regarding end of year New York State assessments? Last time we heard from the Department of Education, I understand they will not count, but the students will have to take them anyway. Is that correct, or has that changed?
Yeah, this is a bit of a conundrum. So the federal government did not approve New York State's waiver to not issue or not administer the standardized assessments this year. So those are tests in grades 3 through 8, and then there are the Regents examinations as connected to the graduation requirement. So here's the good news for all parents and guardians who are watching right now who think that that's crazy. You don't have to have your child taken. Let me say that again. You don't have to have your child take them. All you need to do is reach out to your child's principal, let them know that your child will not be sitting for the assessments this year. There is no negative consequence associated with that. There's no repercussions that you have to worry about. There's nothing at all except you decided as a parent or guardian that this year your child's not going to participate in those assessments. So we will administer them dutifully as we have to under the law. But we also completely and fully respect and expect that many parents and guardians will let us know that they're going to take a step aside this year and not have their child participate in those assessments.
Okay, so your child can either take it or not. Yeah. Okay. Now, how are we handling graduation from high school from an academic standpoint and a moving up standpoint in the lower grades?
So we're planning right now. We have team members at both White Plains High School and also Highlands Middle School who are diligently planning for what is, I believe, going to be a really, really special and exciting event for both groups of children. Of course, at Highlands, we have our children, our 8th graders, who are going to be moving up and matriculating up into the high school. And we typically have a moving up ceremony where we celebrate them at the county center. We also have our high school commencement class of 2021, typically at the county center. Going to be different this year. It's going to be at Loucks, and we're really excited about that. So we're working to put on an event, an experience that's going to be safe. It's going to be within the guidelines associated by the New York State Department of Health, and it's going to be fun and exciting. And it's also going to be, I think, a moment befitting really the accomplishment of our children. Of course, we celebrate our Tigers who are moving up into the high school coming out of Highlands, but for the class of 2021, this has been an extraordinary year. And they have stepped up and they have done extraordinary things. So we're looking forward to celebrating them. We will have in-person audience. We don't know how many each graduate will be able to have yet. We have to watch the guidelines, but we are planning on holding that event in June at Loucks Field, and we're really excited about it.
So at this point, it seems like all grades will move up throughout the system with no penalties like staying back or something like that.
No.
Okay, fine. That's good for
Absolutely.
everybody to know.
Yep.
Now, you contemplated an intense summer school program when we spoke just before the reopening process began. Is this still needed, or is it still too soon to tell?
Well, we are planning for a robust summer school experience for our students this year. We hope that, and certainly we're going to be, reaching out to families for them to be able to take advantage of this, and also working with community partners. This opportunity for support doesn't end at the conclusion of the summer. For opportunities next year as well for our students to be able to participate in extension opportunities or support opportunities. But yeah, absolutely, we plan on a robust summer program this year, and we're looking for it. And Ann's been planning for it and working with our team members and making sure that the facilities are going to be ready as well.
I see. Now, who will have to attend the summer school?
Well, typically the folks.
It's a different year.
Yeah, it's a different year. Typically, the must-attends are students who have experienced enormous challenges and have failed classes. And in order to progress to the next grade level, really have to make sure that they can demonstrate the mastery of the fundamentals in the classes that they had the difficulty in during the regular year. So we'll have some of that. Okay. But mostly this is going to be an opportunity for students who wish to really sort of complement and support the learning that took place this year, or work on areas that they still feel like they could use additional support and extension. So we really take a very targeted stance on summer school in that it's not a punishment. It's not a remedial opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to catch up. It's an opportunity for you to better, solidify your understanding in your academic courses. And it's an opportunity for you to even extend your learning. And we see that as an advantage.
Am I to understand then that the very motivated students who don't feel exactly comfortable can opt to choose as an option to go to summer school? Is that correct?
You can. Yep.
Fantastic.
You don't have to be mandated.
Fantastic. So that is, and how does one do that? How does a parent?
Sure. Reach out to your child's teacher, principal, guidance counselor. All of those folks will be able to assist.
Okay.
And keep an eye out, because there will be information coming out of each of our buildings, and encouraging parents to sign up. The never-ending communication efforts by the White Plains School District, which is phenomenal in the way you've been able to communicate this year. Nice. Now, do you expect a need for intensive remediating in the next school year? We have to remediate the anchor here. Well, I think we will absolutely have situations where we're going to have to provide additional supports to kids or reteach lessons and topics, and that's okay. It's not a cause for alarm. This is, I think, going to be one of those situations where we will find very quickly that kids, like you mentioned before, with just the protocols and the mask, kids pick things up really fast. Yes. If it's presented to them and they're supported, they get it. So I'm not worried about that. I think, as long as we have our children and that our children are safe and secure and feeling supported and, in a positive place, social and emotionally, the academic piece we can get done.
Mm-hmm. Now, White Plains has been getting a lot more money from the state from the American Recovery Act. How will that be used?
Oh, in so many ways to support the community. And do you want to talk a little bit about how we were actually just talking about this morning, John, how we started out with the initial CARES Act money, and then now we find ourselves, American Rescue Plan. And go ahead, Ann, I'm sorry.
So we are slated to get an additional monies through the American Recovery Rescue Plan and also the CRARES, CRRS. And, we want it to be thoughtful, take these dollars and really, put together a thoughtful long-range plan to utilize them to really support, our infrastructure plan as far as ventilation, and really trying to make sure that we're addressing all the learning loss that's a required component of that, but providing those supports, as Dr. Ricca was mentioning. So it's really putting together a team. We'll come up with a thoughtful plan to best utilize those dollars.
And that is being worked on now, but of course you don't have it yet, right?
Right.
And they're still solidifying the final amounts, and we've not seen, that many specifics as far as, of how to utilize it, how to apply for it, and all that still has to come forward.
I see that. On April 19th, you still don't know how much you're getting. That's great.
Well, John, I mean, par for the course, right?
Absolutely. Government is speedy, whereas school districts cannot be slow.
In all seriousness, though, for and thank you, Ann. The board and we want to make these dollars last, and that
was my
is,
next question.
in a couple of ways. We want to make them last by being smart about the expenditures and being conservative and responsible in what we're going to expend them and invest them in. So I see this as an opportunity to invest in the district to provide, from a capital, from an infrastructure standpoint, a return that will last for many, many years. Unfortunately, some school districts are in situations where they have to use this money to try and fill holes. We're not going to approach that this way because this is one shot. It's one shot money. You won't get it again. And you want to make sure that this is going to be money that's spent in a way that
you're going to invest in something that's going to last, that's not a recurring expenditure.
Right.
And that investment, in essence, really does save the taxpayer, because those funds will go towards that investment, and therefore it's not something that we need to fund, as we continue down the, working on our master plan that we had, put into place a couple of years ago, and that we're trying to still accomplish. We have buildings most of our buildings are 100 years old. So, this will go towards helping that effort.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is certainly something to look forward to in the future when the actual dollar amount comes in. I guess I think it won't be till July or August at the present time.
Yeah, especially the promulgation of the regulations on how it's going to be spent.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's half and half from what the state says. Let's see. Do you see remote learning techniques being worked on to improve them?
Oh, I think so. I think, we learned a lot about remote learning professionally in education as teachers. I think we see it as something that can be leveraged and pieces of that process leveraged in the future. And look, anytime you're doing, delivering instruction or teaching, you always want to be looking for a cycle of improvement. So I think that we can absolutely say that we really capitalized and leveraged what we learned last spring into how we performed in the paradigm that we selected for remote instruction this year. I mean, it was really kind of, night and day, apples and oranges, and that's to the credit of our professionals, right? Learning and really learning on the go. And, folks should know this too. Even before the school year kicked off in September, the White Plains City School District had offered over 500 professional development opportunities for members of our faculty and staff and administration to learn as much as possible about what we were trying to do. And oftentimes it was coming out as quickly, the learning was taking place as the research was happening. So like everything else during the pandemic, there was a lot of unknowns, and it took, kind of trial by error. And we're in a much better place than we were initially, for sure.
I see. Now, it's my understanding you're keeping the proposed school budget where it was proposed about a month ago into the May school budget vote, and you're not using the COVID aid for next year's expenses. Could you explain where the budget stands right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll turn it over to Ann, but one thing I do want to say, we're grateful for everybody the budget process in White Plains is not a sort of, this time of year we work on it. This is an ongoing, year-long, everyday process, right? So we look at our funding and our resources and our spending plan, and we try to think about this year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and we really build a long-range plan that will help to carry us through ups and downs and unanticipated situations. And we're real proud, John, of the proposed budget that was approved by the Finance Committee, then the Board of Education, and now will be up for review and hopefully approval by the community. This is a budget that is well below the tax cap. The tax cap was somewhere around, and Ann will get in, but 3.88%, and we're coming in, John, at 1.23%. And initially you say, whoa, wait a second. What are you cutting out of the budget? Nothing. This budget, we're reducing the budget, but still able to have it support everything our children have and move the district forward. And I'll throw it to you because you'll.
No, Dr. Ricca, that's exactly it. The goal is always to continue to improve what our offerings are, but to preserve and protect our instructional program. And that's the purpose of doing long-range planning, so that we're constantly assessing where we stand in any given point in time. And when we did the long-range plan, in the late fall, early winter, we understood the impact that COVID was having. And even last August, prior to August, the board and the administration took a decisive step in saying, wait a second, let's not move on the initiatives that were approved as part of the 2021 plan. And we held those dollars, and we did not, fill those initiatives, although we kept everything the same as our instructional program and preserved that. And we didn't build that into our 21-22 budget. We knew, because of the economics and, all that our community has been going through as far as the COVID and just the financial impact, that it was important for us to hold the line. And so those dollars enabled us, along with, just the normal constraints of COVID, yielded significant savings within the 2021 school year budget. And so we were able to, use one-time only money from those savings to fund debt service, which helped reduce the tax levy. And B, we were able to reduce our overall budget by $3.62 million. So we actually have a negative budget by 1.55%. And truly, it's out of the fact that this has been an incredibly excruciating year, and we needed to respect the fact that everyone needs to move forward and recover. And that's why the dollars that we do now get from the state and the federal government, we want that to be thoughtful. It came just at the 11th hour. We want to really make sure that we're building a good instructional program and we're addressing our infrastructure needs. And again, as Dr. Ricca has said, to invest in our students and in our school facilities and in our community. And
thank you. I just wanted to. I don't think you could say it. I don't think you could say it enough. And I hope that our community members they really feel this. We are so grateful for the support that we've received from our community and continue to receive from our community. It was really, really important to us to do everything that we could to show that we understand that this has been a tough time, and not just come through with, here we are at the tax cap, but to really be with a scalpel, go in and figure out how can we get this proposed tax levy as low as possible while still supporting the program, moving the mission forward. And when it comes down to it, folks always say to me, all right, Joe, well, what does that mean?
And you cut expenses,
right,
when the money wasn't there and your expenses were growing, and no government ever does that. So this is a first in my experience in White Plains.
Thanks for recognizing that, John. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, well, is there anything as we go into the final minutes you would like to say going forward?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody to please participate in this year's Board of Education election and budget vote that's going to take place on Tuesday, the 18th of May. And this year you can vote in person. You also can choose to apply for a mail-in ballot, an absentee ballot based on the COVID, the pandemic. But the polls will be open. More information will be coming. You can visit the district's website. You can see everything in the budget. You can see every line, every proposed expenditure. There are videos both in English and in Spanish. So we really tried to get as much information and make it available to folks as possible. And then I think, John, the last thing I'm going to ask is, hopefully, and I know you have a crazy busy schedule, but I'd love to come back and talk with you one more time in June, give you an update on where we are, how things are rolling out, and provide any insight into the summer.
Well, it's always great that you make yourself so available to the parents of the children in the district through your weekly briefings, and it's always an honor to have you on the program because you're very responsive to the need to inform the community, which is the only reason interview shows like this exist, to inform. And I thank you for your support. And Ms. Vaccaro-Tesch, already the genius with the numbers. Thank you for joining us today. And this is John Bailey saying thank you again to the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Joseph Ricca, and Assistant Superintendent for Business, Ann Vaccaro-Tesch. And John Bailey, right. John Bailey saying good night for people to be heard.